Content warning. This video contains mentions of suicide and torture. Okay, how do I even start this? Okay, this is a story about an online group of freedom fighters risking their livelihood and safety to try help fight the disinformation campaign of a fascist government. It's about online greed, about public complacency, and how popularity can be the enemy of facts. This is a story about AltGov. Also, this is a US-centric video, so for my non-US viewers, adjust your malapropism detectors accordingly. It's non-metric. To understand the story of what AltGov is, we need to go back to 2017. At the beginning of Donald Trump's first presidency, Trump was doing the dictator thing, cutting funding, silencing dissidents, the works. One of those affected was the National Parks Service, the NPS, and the specific thing that happened was that their Twitter accounts were silenced for saying things that the administration disagreed with. A few days later, the Twitter account of Badlands NPS seemingly went rogue, tweeting out global warming facts against the administration wishes. This little act of rebellion ignited a fire under some federal workers and created a snowball effect. These dissidents created alternate government social media accounts, or AltGov for short. The idea is that if they can't get correct messaging through official channels, these people with insider knowledge will do it unofficially instead. In the early days, the roles and rules for these accounts were fast and loose. Some were just venting, others comedic satire, and more were legitimate activists. But a good portion of them started doing real works of resistance. These became the AltGov movement that we know of today. Their goal was mainly to disseminate information of their fields of expertise in an age where the US government was embracing censorship and lies. Mind you, these were all still normal citizens who just so happened to be federal workers or federal adjacent like contractors and specialists. So a good part of their account activities were, well, normal microblogging stuff, you know, shit posts and retweets. But when shit hits the fan in their specific agencies, they step up. They basically did the jobs that their specific government institutions social media was supposed to do. AltCDC would speak up when CDC topics came up, that kind of shit. But it expanded to real resistance. They would do things like coordinate info drops to counter propaganda, bot watching to prevent spread of misinformation, and fundraisings. By the end of the first Trump presidency, they were helping to track insurrectionists. If you want to find out more about the specific of their stories in Trump 1.0, I recommend you to read Amanda Sturgill's book We Are AltGov, which I shamelessly plagiarized for this segment. Don't add H-bomb. Foreshadowing is a literary device, but that's all just the basic background. I have no intention of repeating a story to you that someone else has already told. No, today's focus is on a specific account called AltNPS. AltNPS is a social media account that claims to be an AltGov account for the National Park Service in particular. They claim to have been founded by federal employees and are run by a mysterious nationwide coalition. So they claim. They have over 4.4 million followers across all their accounts. It all began for me with this video by the Scap Chick, aka Rebecca Watson, who pointed out that the social media account called AltNPS is likely fake. Now, I was a follower of the AltNPS account on Blue Sky, so this revelation kind of shocked me, and given this channel's propensity to look into stories that falls through the cracks, I thought it would be a fun thing to take a quick look into, especially since it fell through the cracks so much that it fell through my crack. Butt joke. My soul is 5 years old. To understand AltNPS, I classified the AltGov accounts into 3 different types: verified accounts, OG accounts, and ghost accounts. The first type, the verified accounts, are accounts that we can reasonably accept as real AltGov. These are run by real federal workers or federal adjacent individuals like AltFDA or AltNASA with special insider knowledge in those fields. There are multiple ways they can be verified, and I have personally confirmed some of their methods of verification as legit. For their security, I cannot tell you how they do it, but the way they do it will verify their identity. But if you don't fully trust me, that's fine. You can go to this article by Snopes where journalist Brooke Binkowski had done the legwork with a preliminary list of some of the older alts from Twitter. Currently, most of the accounts are on Blue Sky with this altgov.info handle. This handle means they have been internally verified by the current AltGov movement. This movement does also include members from Binkowski's article. You can also check through Amanda Sturgill's We Are #AltGov for further verification. In it, she was basically allowed into the inner circle of the movement, so she has a great deal of access. It's a legacy verification chain using methods which I personally think are legit. Because this is a non-organized movement, there are some gaps in the verification. For example, AltNPS doesn't have the AltGov.info handle on Blue Sky, but they are a legit AltGov account. Similarly, newer AltGov accounts won't appear in Sturgill's book or Binkowski's article. If you're on Blue Sky, I will link a pack of accounts below that are curated by an active member. The second type are the OG outs. These are the accounts created in the opening days of 2017. Not many of them are left, and the reason I separate them from verified accounts is because some of them aren't. A good number of them overlaps with verified accounts like AltNPS and AltFDA. Others never provided any verification, even to journalists. They are just sort of there. Some have even handed over their accounts and are no longer even run by the same person or are run by completely anonymous third parties. These last two deviations, the anonymous and unverified, makes up for the last type of out accounts, the ghost out accounts. This is where AltNPS comes in. AltNPS is one of these accounts that have never been verified and have refused all requests for verification, either from outside outlet or from existing verified AltGov. The size and existence of their scam is a little hard to quantify. Unlike previous scams I've covered, I can't just give you a number like they stole $5 million because they don't publish their numbers, nor do they seem inherently bad on the surface because their account seems to just be posting updates by disseminating news to the public, performing insider resistance with heavy air quotes, and raising money to support their causes. Basically the same thing that AltGov accounts are supposed to do. But if we look just a little closer, it's not long before something seems odd. I'll be looking at some of these issues in increasing severity, so even if you don't find what they are doing incredulous at the start, hold the thought in your beautiful head that it gets worse. Let's start with the part about raising money. AltNPS have a shop. On it, they sell stickers and t-shirts. While they say the proceeds goes to support the national parks, they don't actually provide any proof for this claim. They also raise money for various programs like their Junior Ranger program, but there's no trail for where that money goes, and those programs never materialize. The money could be going to charities or to the pocket of a random John Doe for Jack Daniels and Coke, lowercase c. We don't know. There is no receipt, and because of that, as I've said, it's quite hard to quantify the numerical damage of AltNPS because they don't release their sales number. But it's not impossible to guess. OutYellow NetPark is another one of these ghost out accounts. They ran a GoFundMe last year, raising over $50,000 and even more before that through other fundraisers. They've come under fire before for using the money on dubious spendings like snowmobiles. OutYellow has less than 1/10 the numbers of followers that AltNPS have, and they were still able to raise close to $100,000 across all their active years. Future Aiden here, I just realized these are two completely different fundraisers, and they do not include two other previous fundraisers from 2017 that I could not find screenshots for, meaning that OutYellow NetPark has raised more than $150,000 in donations on GoFundMe. This is a really nice grift. We multiply that by the numbers of followers AltNPS have, and that's no small chunk, an estimate of a few millions and change that's going into AltNPS's pockets. But that's not a really good way to gauge, and nowadays numbers like those gets thrown around a lot. We're dealing in a world with billionaires making the news on a daily basis after all, so let me put this in context for you. And to do that, I need to talk a little about the Alt family. Also known as AltFam. While AltGovs are people who are involved in federal work, AltFam are people who gave time and effort to make AltGov possible. Think of these people as civilian volunteers with special skill sets that can help, like programming, niche hobbies, craftsmanship, that kind of stuff, but are not federal government related. Kim is a member of the AltFam. She helped with rescue efforts during Hurricane Harvey, contributed her knitting skills to various causes, and made and donated over 1,400 masks during COVID. I cannot state this enough. Kim is a normal person. Her superpower is knitting, and she has saved more lives with that skill than most of us will in our lifetimes. Basically, guns don't save lives. Knitting does. A few years back, she got sick. Very sick. She recovered but needed help with her medical bills. I want you to remember the hundreds of thousands of dollars that AltNPS and AltYellow have likely gotten between them, and hold those numbers in your head as I tell you that Kim's fundraiser to help cover her medical bills, ran and supported by verified AltGov accounts at the time of recording, is just shy of $2,500. 10% of her goal, less than 5% of AltYellow's dubious fundraiser. A link to Kim's fundraiser, still ongoing, is in the description below. AltNPS have a shop. On it they sell stickers and t-shirts. Because they only ship to the US, I couldn't buy any of their products. But according to this blurry tag on their t-shirts, which I manually traced over and ran through an image search, yes, I am that kind of insane, they are printed on District Clothing's t-shirt, which, comparing the description to the catalog that is for some reason not accessible in Singapore, is specifically printed on the ring spun cotton poly blend. Again, yes, I am that kind of insane. And from the price listed by District's distributors, AltNPS probably make anywhere between 5 to 15 USD per shirt. Let's be kind and say it's on the low end. Also, their stickers have a profit margin of at least $3 if I'm to be kind again. If just 1% of AltNPS's followers bought just one product from their shop each, a pretty average marketing conversion rate, that's anywhere between $100 to $200,000 on the low end. Kim, who actually saved lives with a COVID mask and helped rescue people after a hurricane, got 2.5. What the fuck are we actually doing? Because of all these money nonsense, AltGov, the real one, had to be very careful about asking for money. Basically, outside of emergencies and this one charity fundraiser called AltGov Cares, which unlike AltNPS has its receipt attached, meaning we can guarantee that money goes to charities, they don't ask for money. Because why would they? They are a decentralized underground anti-fascist resistance fighting against a dictator, not your local Red Cross. AltGov Cares has pretty much stalled as a fundraiser, and despite requests to restart the fundraising, they can't, or to be precise, they won't, specifically because of AltNPS and AltYellow and their shady dealings with money, damaging the reputation and trust required to do activism like this. To quote an AltGov account I spoke to for this video, "Trust is and should be earned. Watch for accuracy and motive. AltGov has been active since 2016, has carefully vetted members and been checked time and again by reporters and authors who have all found us willing to engage and confirm authenticity. AltNPS, on the other hand, has not shown any transparency to even the most trusted journalists. One seeks only to bring facts to the table, while the other is reaching for your wallet. Out Space Force." Hi, Future Aiden here. There's this thing about AltNPS that I haven't talked about, and I did intend on talking about it throughout this main video, but while I'm editing the video and going through and double checking on my work, this thing keeps jumping out at me and I don't really know how to explain it, and I really feel like I have to talk about it. AltNPS has a really weird thing they do, and that is they collect your personal information. And you might not think that's weird, but I do, because AltNPS is calling themselves this underground anonymous resistance fighting thing, but they're collecting your personal information. And that doesn't make sense. And they are very sneaky about this. There's a lot of way for them to do it. Of course, there's their shop and their goddamn fucking t-shirts, but they also have a mailing list, which you can subscribe to. This mailing list seems to be the original point of AltNPS. AltNPS, back in 2017 when it first started, had a website called AltISpy. They also had the AltNPS .com.org website. I can't remember what it is. You'll see it on the screen right now. But the main goal of those websites is to provide a place for you to sign up to their mailing list. This was before the shops, before the blogs, before all the other nonsense that are on their website. Their main goal was for you to sign up to a mailing list. A mailing list is for marketing purposes. I cannot think of any other reason to have that. The reason why I feel like I have to talk about it in this video now is because everything they do seems to come back to this mailing list. They have this thing where you can make a pledge on their website to pledge to, you know, do your like respect your nature, respect the parks, whatever nonsense. And you have to give them your name and email and zip code. Why? Just why? And When you click confirm your pledge for the verification email, they tell you you will subscribe to a list. This is their mailing list. Why does the pledge go to their mailing list? Why? I don't understand so much about this stupid account. It's... Why? So they keep getting you to give them your personal information. And look, when you go and take their quizzes, they ask for your email address again. Everything on their website just ask you for your email address and personal information, and I don't know why. What the only reason you would keep asking for these things is if it's to sell you shit. Going through their terms and condition and privacy policy, one of the things that jump out to me is the use for the information they collect. They say that third party may use it to fulfill their services on their behalf, such as payment processing and email delivery. But that's a very broad usage term. Basically, they can just give your personal information to any third party for email delivery. They can sell your email to third parties' mailing lists for spam. Right? I'm no big city lawyer, but that's basically what this is, right? You're just selling your information. It's a grift. Right? On the surface, AltNPS and their ilk appears harmless, to the point that many of their supporters think that they are just disseminating news and earning a couple of dollars of scratch. Sharing information can't be bad, some of them will say, but nothing happens in a vacuum, and they are doing so at the expense of other people whose lives and safety are under attack in a world hanging on the brink, on a fraying thread of trust being cut up by constant misinformation. And they are 100% on the side of misinformation, which leads me to my next section. Let's talk about James Summerton. I mean plagiarism. I'm talking about plagiarism. Don't use that thumbnail. I don't want a bisexual twink to destroy me. Or do I? For this part, I need to introduce you to a new character in the story called Jack.
From top again, can I have you introduce yourself? What you do? What is AltWatcher?
Yeah, my name is Jack. I'm the writer behind the Blue Sky account AltWatcher, and I've been studying and tracking the posts and activity of the Alt National Park Service account across Blue Sky and Facebook since about January of this year.
I'll be calling Jack the Watcher for this video because 1, that's a super cool nickname, and B, it's the name of a main character from my fantasy novel. Like, how often do I get a chance like this? Basically never, right? I will be releasing the full interview I did with him in the near future, so do watch that if you're interested in more. In the meantime, I will pepper clips from our conversation in this video as needed. The Watcher has been tracking AltNPS's posts on Blue Sky for a long time now, and consistently pointed and called out repeated plagiarisms by AltNPS. The methods have improved over time, but the gist of it is that AltNPS would take news reported by outlets and remove any identifying information of the people who were involved in getting the story to you to make it seem like they were the one reporting stuff, as if they were given information because of their secret resistance network. They are basically role-playing as someone who's an insider with secret never-before-heard information. They'll say things along the lines of, a staffer says, or we will share this, as if they were either there or part of a coalition of people who were. But they're just posting about news that other outlets have wrote about hours, sometimes days after the fact. The things they post are also just useless, devoid of any actual advice or specialized information, and they would sometimes just verbatim copy and thesaurus paste from even small local news outlets. By the way, AltNPS, you little shit, this is how you attribute stuff. Name, source, time. Not that hard. This is contrary to actual AltGov accounts. When AltCDC talked about RFK Jr. possibly restricting access to certain vaccines, they did so days ahead of time and with insights, sourcing, and actual call to aid that could help people. Their news dissemination is also faster, sometimes on par with actual outlets. And you might be wondering, Fat Man, you said the list gets worse, but this seems relatively tame compared to the last one. And you, being the handsome, beautiful, and smart people you are correct. But plagiarism isn't the problem. I mean, it is a problem. It's just not the main damage it's causing. The main problem is by how it's being done.
The meat of my video, and the reason why I wanted to talk to you is, you've talked a lot about how when they remove like the names of the people involved in the story, they are also removing like victims and the names of not just the reporters but also victims who are part of the story, who has risked their lives, their safety to share this with us. You've been quite passionate about that, and I wanted to get you to talk about it a little more, if you could.
Yeah, the one that springs to mind is when they talked about detainees at the alligator Alcatraz,
yes, I remember
facility
that
in Florida.
That really hurt.
Yeah, that one was rough. They grabbed reporting from, I believe it was NBC and CBS talked about it, but excuse me,
no problem.
But originally it came from Telemundo originally. These two men who were being detained at the Alligator Alcatraz facility in Florida contacted Telemundo, a local outlet, I believe in Florida, to tell the story of the conditions that they were living in. They reported this to Telemundo in Spanish. In English language coverage, it was picked up by CBS and NBC News. And I'm guessing that's where AltNPS found it. But when they talked about it, they said that this information was being reported directly from detainees at Alligator Alcatraz. But they didn't say that it was being reported to Telemundo. They just said it came directly from detainees, with the implication being that it came directly from those detainees to the Alt National Park Service. That these men who are in this facility, who are suffering in this facility, were contacting the park rangers to try and tell their story. And when that story was being told, at least as AltNPS told it, they didn't even bother listing those men's names. They didn't say who those two men were. And that's the part that gets me. That's the part that makes everything so clear. It makes this account's cynicism so clear. Because those two men were named Vladimir Miranda and Leamsi Izquierdo, and they were suffering in that facility. And AltNPS did not care enough to say their names. This is not an account I can take seriously. This is not an account that wants change. This is an account that wants clout, and it wants clicks, and it wants attention.
Yeah, listening to that story, it feels like a hit just dropped in my stomach every time I hear it, because I've also worked with victims of terrible things before, and the idea that you could just remove the names of these people who are brave enough to share what's happening to them for us, basically, it's a kind of they're kind of like giving their story away, and just removing it is I that was the moment where I went like, oh, AltNPS might actually be straight up evil in a sense.
Yeah. I think I've also had a very similar moment with them, and I wish I could say it had come earlier. You know, I wish that I had come around to the idea, not that these people are just cynical grifters, but that they are villains. Because for me, it was a couple months after that. This was just a few weeks ago, when they stole a big section of an article from Wired magazine. Again, about ICE detention centers, this time about the status of 911 calls within those detention centers. And this time, they described all these horrible things that were being reported through 911 calls to these detention centers. You know, medical emergencies, attacks, assaults, disease, all this stuff. But the original Wired article also listed suicide attempts.
Jesus.
And AltNPS surgically did not mention the word suicide. And the only reason you would do that is because you are trying to not get buried by the algorithm on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. The word suicide is very highly regulated on those platforms. That's why a lot of users use euphemisms, like unalive.
Yeah. When you said that, I immediately thought I would remove that from a post if I was just trying to gain clout.
If you were, yeah, exactly. It limits your reach. It limits your engagement. But you know who didn't care about that was Wired. Journalists. Journalists don't care about that because what they want is to get the real story out. They want to inform the public. What AltNPS wants to do is get as much engagement as possible. And if that means that they will remove mentions of the word suicide from their posts, if they will erase the suffering of the people who are attempting suicide in these facilities, then they don't care about the detainees in these facilities. They don't care about the health and safety of these people. What they care about is clicks. What they care about is engagement. And as I said when I looked into this, I am someone who has lost a loved one to suicide. And this was really the moment when my irritation with AltNPS turned into rage at these people. That I don't know what they could do to change my mind about them at this point. And up until this point, I was willing. I was willing for them to be able to change and improve. And now I don't know if I can.
AltNPS have a shop. On it, they sell stickers and t-shirts. And on their social media, AltNPS are erasing the names of people that speaks on your behalf. These names belong to people who are heroes and victims alike, risking lives, sacrificing valor, putting targets on their own backs, going through actual torture so that they can get these news to you, whose names are being erased so a freedom-fighting LARPer can sell you stickers and t-shirts. Quoting another AltGov account I spoke to, all signs indicate AltNPS is not who or what they claim to be. I invite followers to keep a healthy skepticism and reinvest the confidence and hope placed in AltNPS into yourselves and your ability to take action. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. As American cultural anthropologist Margaret Mead put it, take action, be the change, and please, before grabbing your credit card for AltNPS, ask a local ranger what not-for-profit is doing good work for a park or forest you love and send your financial support there instead. Alt US Forest Service. Hi everyone, sorry for the lack of a camera and any possible background noise. There's construction work going on. It's Monday morning and I just woke up. I'm checking through my news feed for all the news I missed over the weekend, and I'm supposed to be uploading this video for early access for my Patreon and channel members right after. But I saw this post by AltNPS that I absolutely have to include in this video because it so cleanly showcased the entire plagiarism grift of AltNPS so clearly. See, AltNPS, quote-unquote, reported that the Trump administration reversed the firing of federal employees at the CDC, followed by some examples, such as those working on an Ebola outbreak. They then linked to a Reuters article, right? And you might think, oh, they are attributing sources. Great. But the article, aside from being 10 whole hours earlier than AltNPS, doesn't mention anything about Ebola. So I wondered, where did this Ebola mention come from? So I quickly put together a list of all the news sources for this, and the earliest source that broke this news that I found, and you're not going to fucking believe this, is AltCDC, one of the verified outs who throughout the weekend was live posting about the firings, they were 6 whole hours ahead of Reuters and on par and sometimes faster than the New York fucking Times. The jackass behind AltNPS tried to hide their plagiarism and tried to pretend to have inside information that was not in the Reuters article by plagiarizing information on a news story that was broken by an account of the movement they were plagiarizing. I know I said it as a joke earlier in the video, but I think there's a chance James Summerton might really be the person behind AltNPS. Remember earlier in the video where I said I made an error? This is the part where I corrected. I said that AltNPS claims to donate their proceeds to other organizations like charities, etc. The interesting thing is, that's not true. They've never said that. It's not noted anywhere on their website, it's not noted anywhere during the purchasing of their crap. It is not said anywhere. And this brings up a very interesting side of the conversation that I barely talked about with the watcher in the interview, and that is the BlueAnon part. For those who don't know, BlueAnon is basically the phenomenon of QAnon but for leftists. And the watcher talked about this on another podcast, It Could Happen Here, which I highly recommend. But basically what's happening is that the followers for AltNPS have created kind of a fantasy conspiracy theory that surrounds AltNPS. AltNPS to them is seen as this secret resistance, but unlike the actual AltGov resistance, they are more spy-like, conspiratorial. They have inside knowledge, special cells or whatever things that is happening, and they've created a fictional world that surrounds AltNPS based on vibes. They give credit to AltNPS where AltNPS doesn't deserve any. For example, the donation of proceeds. This isn't something that AltNPS stated. This is just something that their followers think. And I completely understand why, because why wouldn't a force for good that is getting money through a shop not use those proceeds to fund good stuff? But even I assume that they would have claimed it, because that's the logical train of thought for this process. But they've never done this. They've never claimed to donate the proceedings to any charities or any other organization that supports national parks or anything like that. And I've checked, they've carefully worded a lot of their posts regarding money to not legally be about donating to organizations. In my conversation with the watcher, we talked about another time when this happened to him, which is that AltNPS's followers claims that they make their t-shirts at cost, which is weird, right? Because one, if you were raising money, why were you making it at cost? And B, if you weren't raising money, why were you making it?
Oh, which is another weird thing. You said that their supporters have said that they made the stuff at cost.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they raise money by making something at cost?
My God, I never thought of that. Why would you do that if you're doing it at cost?
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Like that's the defense people have gone to.
Right.
But why would you do that? To raise awareness, I guess.
Yeah.
But you could do that without making T-shirts.
Yeah.
I never. Oh my God, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
You have to set up like distribution channels and delivery service and all that to make your t-shirts and stickers and nonsense. So if you are a secret underground resistance fighter in the government holding a day job, infiltrating the current fascist dictatorship administration, why the are you making t-shirts? But for the followers of this account, this is like a reason for them to believe. And they kind of fill in the gaps. It's a lot like QAnon in that the conspiracy theories will fill in the gap to make sense of something that doesn't make sense so that they can justify its existence. This is what AltNPS is doing. Whether they are doing it knowingly or not doesn't really matter, because the environment that they have cultivated with all their shit posts and secret messages and codes postings, which is another thing that I'm not talking about in this video, please just go and listen to the Watcher's interview on their other podcast. Again, links in the description. But this is what they create. This is the danger of AltNPS. This environment and air of roleplay activism. I put in a lot of work for this video, most of which you won't see here. I started out with the simple goal of finding out who AltNPS were, and later expanded to who AltYellow were. I created a timeline of their online activities, tracked their DNS history, contacted every name I could find that was even tangentially related to them. Writers, scientists, artists, even the university these people worked for. I spent months doing this, following up on leads after leads. I figured unmasking them would be the quickest, most surefire way to show you, hey, look, here's a scam. Long story short, despite my best effort, I didn't come close to doing it. The most I got was finding out they used a mailing redirectory at some point in the past, but even they didn't know who they were. Every name I tried to reach out to ghosted me. Every address, physical or digital, led to dead ends. I even tried to trace their financial activities. Every new answers just raised more questions. It is insane how difficult it is to find who runs these accounts, especially considering that the verified AltGov members, who are real people with real records of real world impact with real federal jobs risking real livelihoods, all replied to me on first try. I have this sinking feeling that short of a criminal investigations with warrants to web posters, we will never find out who AltNPS is. But I don't think AltNPS's identity matters anymore. The problem with AltNPS and other unverified alt like them is not that they are scams, it's that they are selling you shovels on a cliff edge and telling you to dig to reach salvation, all the while reducing the reputation of the people who are actually trying to save you from falling off, the actual AltGov movement's names. People who have done actual work to help actual people are being dragged through the mud and hamstrung in their ability to enact better activism and possibly even save lives because some random internet anon wants to sell you t-shirts. It is insane the amount of collateral damage these accounts have caused when you look back on it for the financial returns it might have reaped. And there are more of them than you think. Rogue DMC is some Occupy Democrats news plagiarizing shit poster with a fucking TikTok for some reason. They aren't even pretending to be AltGov, they're just news and memes using the brand of real resistance fighters. Can you imagine if GlaxoSmithKline changed their names to Doctors Without Borders? It's the same concept. There are people right now risking safety and lives to resist an actual fascist despot, and victims suffering and dying in actual concentration camps, being tortured, whose names and values are being stolen and erased by someone who wants to sell you t-shirts? I know late stage capitalism is a dystopian nightmare, but holy shit! The Watcher talked to me about some of the people who go out of their way to defend AltNPS, the fandom as I called them. They are the role players, not all of them, but at this time it is a noticeable chunk of them. It's not their fault, of course. AltNPS has created an environment that acts as a pipeline to create these activist role players. Every time you buy one of their products without checking where the money goes, or share their plagiarism without looking for sources, or just follow their advice to check into a protest on Facebook just to provide numbers instead of showing up in person, it's an act of roleplay. It is activism without risk or effort, and that isn't activism at all. Because checking in on Facebook doesn't help a protest. It makes people less likely to show up if they think they can just be there in spirit. It makes people think that activism is just thoughts and prayers, but it's in the name. Active. AltNPS makes activism look easy. They make it look like the work we do can be done just by going to an online store and ordering a t-shirt. And in turn, they make it seem like the dangers this world is facing is only as bad as ordering a t-shirt. It is not. They are taking advantage of their followers, giving them false hope that things can get better, that they can just rely on this secret resistance instead of having to stand up themselves. But the world is on fire, figuratively and literally, and a lot of people are risking everything to try to save it for you. Journalists, whistleblowers, activists, and they can't help you if you don't have their backs. Don't just buy a t-shirt, don't just #resist. Fight.
Do you have anything that you want to say to my audience that you just want to put it out there?
You know, the thing that I always want to add is that I do go out of my way to be kind to the followers of this account. That it's easy to dunk on people for following something like this, for believing in something like this, and for falling for a scam. But I think they fall for it because of hope. They are hanging on to hope. They're hanging on to the desire for a better tomorrow, and they just need something to hang on to, because our institutions are not that thing right now. You can't hang on to our institutions right now. You can't hang on to our politicians right now. And there are people who are desperate for something to hold on to. And some people have decided that the Alt National Park Service is that thing. And I can't blame anybody for that. So I always want to make clear that in my writing and in my work, that the followers are not the problem. The account is the problem. I want to be careful not to, I want to blame the scammer for scamming people. I don't want to blame the victims of the scammer for getting scammed. So when you talk about AltNPS, and I mean the royal you, not you in particular,
Right.
When you look at AltNPS and you see the people in the comments who are fawning over the account, please see them with kindness and with empathy. You know, see them as people who are smart and people who can be brought back out of this, and people who deserve respect. You know, they're looking for a light in the darkness. They're looking for hope. And just because that hope is being taken advantage of doesn't mean it's not real. Doesn't mean that they don't deserve respect from the rest of us.
Hey everyone, this video is essentially over, but the story and my responsibility in telling it isn't entirely over yet. I said in the video that I spent a lot of time researching into trying to find the identity of AltNPS, and most of the effort did not make it into this video because I have successfully failed to accomplish my goals and it no longer fit into the scope of the story that this video is trying to tell. However, after talking to Jack, the Alt Watcher, I think there is a lot of merit in sharing what I did find, because honestly, I think it can teach us a lot about how these scammers grow into what they are. So I will release it as a short bonus video in a few weeks. Basically, this channel's immediate schedule, if I am not too lazy to keep it up, will be as follows. I will be having my regular post video upload live stream next Friday. I play games, usually Limbus Company, and answer questions and talk about anything that comes to mind. It's kind of a personal bookmark for the end of a project. The week after that, I will upload the full interview / conversation I had with Jack as an audio-only podcast thing. He had a lot of wise insight into AltNPS that I feel like I can't do justice with my words. And believe me, I've tried to write something better. So I'll just have him say them then. The week after that, I will release the bonus video followed by another live stream. And with that, I will finally return to my regularly scheduled lack of schedule. If you want to see the interview and bonus video early, you can subscribe as a channel member or on my Patreon. Speaking of which, thank you to all my lovely patrons. I appreciate the support so much, and a special shout out to my top tier patron BBQ, who insists I use this picture of their Torchic to represent them. So here, Barbecue Pokemon. I have more people I need to thank. Out Space Force and Out US Forest Service, who were very kind to share their stories with me. Also Amanda Sturgill, her book, We Are #AltGov, gave so much incredible insight into this movement. It is a fascinating story. Please go read it if you can. Jack, who runs Outwatcher, for just being an amazing independent watchdog. Nobody asked him to do it, not AltGov or anyone. He just like stepped up. Absolutely amazing dedication to doing the right thing. Also, Rebecca Watson, not so much a thanks, but a curse you for sending me down this rabbit hole. I love your videos, but seriously, please don't do it again. These deep dives are probably taking years of my life. Lynn Style, an OutFam member that was very helpful in pulling up some last minute documents. And finally, Pogan. I didn't get deep into it, but they are a member of the Out family that has been there since the early days. I talked with them and they gave me great insight into what the movement was like back then, and I wanted to end this video on their thoughts on the AltGov movement, which I find very poignant for the times. The OG outs during 1.0 were what we needed at the time. Everyday citizens were just stunned by the relatively bumbling steps towards fascism. Project 2025 didn't exist fully fleshed out like now. The outs that popped up during 1.0 mainly needed to speak up and give regular citizens two things: knowledge and data, and concrete ideas to support resistance effort. They were a focal point to rally around and they helped grow a full-on movement. Which is really fucking lucky because 2.0 Trump admin is a spear intended to grab autocratic power once and for all. It's very different. 1.0 administration was pretty limited. This one deployed Doge and can likely track anyone they want, persecute, prosecute, fire, deport whomever. The new Alts have my utmost respect because they face risks that the OGs did not, and they're resisting with thoughtful coordination and a determination that can only be described as heroic. These Alts are true public servants. The dream of democracy is tattered and has been for a while, but these Alt 2.0 types are the best of us. They know perfection isn't possible, but progress is, and they're risking their careers and the lives they created to do this. I'm impressed, and I'm usually not impressed by much. See you next time. Bye.